Hello and welcome to another episode of Cardiff Central Podcast. As always, it's me in the hot seat, Harley. I'm joined as ever by Carwyn and Dan. How are you doing, boys? How was your long weekend?
Well, it's a working weekend for me, so that we can make of that what you will. I was busy on Saturday primarily and worked a bit Monday, but it wasn't too bad. I had a couple of days off, which was nice. I don't know about you, Dan. What was yours like?
Yeah, bit of Folly Farm action on Saturday. Can't fault it. Did have the little one, just didn't go by myself. Obviously, massive fan of like horses, and but yeah, he enjoyed that and bit of bank holiday traffic on the way there and back as well, just for a laugh. But other than that, stuffed my face with chocolate off for a couple of days.
Excellent stuff. As for myself, I played rugby, got absolutely wankered, and Saturday was a write-off. And that's all we need to know about that. Especially if the videos surface of me in the pub singing the not scout-friendly version of Yogi Bear on top of the table. I'll explain later. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that sounds like an off
okay,
mic
moving on.
conversation.
So a little bit of news this week. So Cardiff Rugby announced this week that Jamie Hill has left the club with immediate effect to pursue an opportunity down in Australia for the Shoot Shield, which Carwyn, being the journalist, was very on the pulse of this and went, "What's that?"
Yeah, I do feel bad about that. That one had split the net, to say the least. I think before the pod, I was just stunned actually that he's going, but more stunned where he's going as well. It seems a bit of a bizarre move, and for Cardiff to let him or allow him or whatever you want to call it to move is a sign, perhaps, that they've got well, I'd hope it's a sign that they've got a plan for scrum halves next season. Because obviously that would leave them with Ellis Bevan as the only scrum half really. With I don't think Aubrey's contract is post this year at the moment. So there have been rumours about grabbing one of the Scarlets boys, particularly Hardy. There've been a lot of rumours around that probably a couple of months ago, really now, and that seems to have died down. So hopefully there's a plan for a scrum half in at Cardiff in the near future.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised, but I think if you look at Hill's career, I think the big thing is he's just got so unlucky with injuries at really key moments. I mean, I think it was his Achilles he did in training in South Africa last season or season before, and when you're losing, sort of 12 to 18 months between the ages of sort of 20 to 23, it's a lot. It's a long way back from there, particularly at nine, where the only way you can properly get to grips with that game management stuff is minutes on the field, basically. But yeah, I think just on what Carwyn said there, it does leave us short for next season. Also leaves us short right now. I mean, Bevan and Aubrey are our two nines now. We don't even have a travelling reserve at nine at the moment in the squad. So I would imagine there'll be somebody coming in short term, or whether they are in a position to bring whoever they presumably have lined up next season in early. But there's also I'll talk in the pathway bit a bit later about the under 18s, but Sean Davis, who started against England on Saturday and has captained Cardiff under 18s this season, Glantaff boy. He's an excellent talent. Up the Glantaff lads. But he's an excellent talent, and next season will probably be a season too early. I suspect we'll see him quite prominently in the rags with the EDC next season, but certainly 2 to 3 years they'll be having an eye on him coming through. So where the squad is now, I think there has to be a cutthroat element of lads once they get to sort of 23, 24s. Before we might have been able to sit on players until they were 25, 26 and see if they could make it. I think now you have to make tough calls earlier, just to free up any budget. Unless you're certain about players making it at 23, 24, then yeah, the hard decisions are now accelerated because of the lack of budget.
That's the mad thing, though, isn't it? Because that's what the EDC is supposed to do. Is it supposed to help those players between 20 to 26 that aren't quite making it in the regions? But if they're not making it in the regions and they're being let go, where do they go then? Do they go back to the clubs? Do they then move outside of the pathway like Jamie Hill has? It's going to be that's the whole purpose, was to help these players. That they use Jack Morgan as the example several times about a player who was let go and then moved back into that club region and then progressed further. Well, if you're a tight head prop, that could be 25, 26. So yeah, it's a bit of a strange one, isn't it?
And that's where Cardiff actually might, obviously having only the rags in the EDC
Mm.
is great for the academy lads that we've got. You keep them together, basically use them as a second 15. But if you like, take Ethan Lloyd, released by the rags last season, goes up to Merthyr, decent wage there, still playing at a decent level, so you can keep a close eye on him. But now Jamie Hill, who I think if Merthyr in the EDC, assuming Jamie Hill was happy to stay in South Wales and didn't want to head off to Australia and life experiences and all that outside of rugby, but he'd have been prime Merthyr candidate to then play in the EDC, and we could have kept a close eye on him and drafted him back in as and when. So that is the downside of Cardiff only having one regional club in the competition next season. We'll have to, maybe we'll just try and like conquer Aberavon or something like that.
I've now got an image of us waging war at Aberavon. I'm just like a field of people and Richard Hibbard just standing in front of us, like holding the gates at Aberavon.
I'm pretty sure Bridgen's in the EDC. Surely that's the more natural first step.
I don't want to conquer them. I'm sick of them.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Just flying over SAS crewing it, just behind enemy lines.
I said I'm not massively all favourite with the shoot shield. Obviously, I've heard that, and I know it's sort of similar to like the NPC in New Zealand. But is it similar to it? It's quite a short season, or is it a case that it's actually sort of had to probably come good playing the shoot shield? Was it more of a long term thing? Do we know?
I think it's. I don't even think it's comparable to the NPC in New Zealand, isn't it? Like specifically, I don't know what the state is. Wherever Sydney is, it's like specifically for that part of Australia. I don't think they even play outside of that state. I don't know if that's Queensland or New South Wales or whatever one it is. But
I mean, where if Australian rugby is quite weird because it is only that one corner really, and then you have the Western Force, which is just like miles away. Then it's all like NRL territory. Then basically.
There's a couple. I think Harry Fry, who was a young Cardiff lad, but I think was on the books of the Dragons. I think he's playing for a team out there at the moment. And I remember Rory Bartle, who was I don't know, bounced around the English Championship a bit, Jersey and London Welsh. Briefly was on the books of the Rags and then went down there as well. So there's been a couple of random guys who've played down there, but I don't know how highly that speaks of the quality of the competition. Certainly. Some good team names in there, though, I was saying, like the Manly Sea Eagles and all this sort of stuff.
I might have to go have a look and find it. Anyway, the other bit of Cardiff news was they announced the financial reports for the year ending June 2023. So Cardiff had a loss of 2.1 million, which is down on 2.2 million from the previous year. I mean, it's professional sport. They're all loss-making businesses. I think Man United lose 26 million every year or something along those lines. Apparently, it's the end of the world for some sports journalists, despite neglecting that their favourite English Premiership team lost 5 million on their own. But we won't go to that. I mean,
I'm interested.
Any real surprise?
Every year, it's people like to read it, so people write about it, don't they? Every year, the loss making, and that's the situation. There's two ways of looking at it. At the moment, having a loss making business in the current climate of rugby does look bad. With my accountancy hat on, you basically just need someone to write a letter saying, well, we'll take care of this and we'll make sure that's a going concern going forward. And we'll keep track of it. And we've got the financial backing, we've got the financial funds to make sure that it's okay. And it doesn't tend to always be as bleak as it sounds. The losses, look, Scarlets were quite strong, weren't they? Murdorak came out really strongly saying, things need to change with the WIU, and he put the blame at their door along with COVID and the pandemic and everything else and inflation as well. But I haven't seen as much from Cardiff since, which I think reflects of it's a bit awkward for them to really come out and say, well, we're in a really bad position when they've just gone through a takeover. So I think this is June to 2023. So it's more interesting what the situation will be in June 2024, I think, with the new ownership and how that will go forward. So yeah, as far as this year, it's probably the least interesting of all the losses that we've seen in the regions.
And I think as well, because it's before we've had this shortened budget. Although, we're going to have a reduction in our wage bill. Whether that translates to, if we gain any extra turnover, plus also our seasonal attendance has been higher. So hopefully that means a bit more in ticket sales, a bit more behind the bar and in food stalls. I imagine we will have made a. I don't know how the situation works when Cats leased out to Wales for the under 20s and women's. So I don't know if having extra fixtures there helps. But and if anyone who listens does know that, please do get in touch because that would actually be quite interesting.
I thought that was the main takeaway that I having flicked through the accounts was that our turnover was up 3 million, bounce back from COVID, commercial income up 500,000, which considering we were sort of like plateauing on a mediocre level is not too bad. So there's, I mean, 16 million is a lot more than like the Ospreys, for example. I don't think they break 10 million. I think they only have to submit the accounts of a small business because they don't get over the 10 million marker. So we're in a healthy position to kick on, and yeah, like I said, Peter was covering that 2 million, and Helford Capital will cover it going forward. If we can keep growing that income at a decent level, particularly non-match day income, seen all the stuff around the World Cup this year, events at the Arms Park, and then Six Nations as well. That's the big growth. If we keep an eye on that turnover number, as long as that continues to steadily improve, I don't think there's too much concern there.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. Any more news that anyone else has on the grapevine they want to discuss? Other than that, it's all rumours. Cardiff have announced today that they're going to have a big farewell celebration to players leaving the club, whether through retirement or finding opportunities elsewhere for the Edinburgh game. So please make sure you get down there. Let's pat cap one last time this season. And yeah, so shall we move on to some actual rugby that was actually played?
Yeah,
just want to have. I don't know if you two caught it, but I do want to go to Thursday night, a bit of Welsh Premiership action. Did any of you watch the Newport Llandovery game? I thought it was cracking. It's just nice to see Llandovery get knocked off their high horse for a bit.
It makes it interesting now that the Rags will probably play Newport if we get fourth now. I think if that's right, I think Newport win out, they'll top the league now, won't they? So
yeah, if they go top the league, which probably gives a little bit. I don't know. I'm not saying it's necessarily an easier job going away to Newport than it is going away.
I'd fancy us at Newport more than I'd fancy us at Llandovery, certainly.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But then it still means you're still going to do.
And it's easier to get to as well. Llandovery's miles from everywhere. I moved down to Llanelli a few years ago and thought, oh great, Llandovery would be close because it's all in Carmarthenshire. We're still driving an hour later. Don't understand how it's so far away from everything.
I would agree normally, but Newport are flying. They are flying.
I think it'd be a cracking game though.
Yeah, we'll do them.
They've thrashed like so many teams in the last couple of weeks. Pontypridd, that was, well, that ultimately cost a lot of jobs there, but the performance there was beyond belief. Ebervale, they've beaten Merthyr, they've beaten everyone in this run-in really convincingly. To be honest, the way they're going, unless something ridiculous happens, I struggle to see how they don't win the league from this position. They're performing that well. O'Brien is just pulling every string he's got, which seems to be 5 million. He's got, every trick in the bag, every kick in the bag, every pass in the bag.
I don't know when the semi-finals are, but they better be on a day the Dragons are playing so that O'Brien isn't there for Newport.
Yeah. Yeah, it just should be a bit of a cheat code, doesn't it, to have a coach for the Dragons down there, doesn't it? I think it should be disallowed. Like, shouldn't be allowed to play if you're a coach for a region.
After Fishy led us to a few titles, I think we'll.
Yeah, true.
Right. Anyway, so go on to more rugby within the Cardiff sort of area. So Cardiff were away to Munster on Saturday night. Final score 20 points to Munster, 15 to Cardiff. First points of the game didn't come until 38 minutes, which is a penalty. I thought that was incredibly scrappy yet very engrossing game. I couldn't take my eyes from it, but I also hated just the sheer amount of mistakes that both sides made. I don't know what your opinions were on that. Do you want to go first, Dan?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that summary at all. To it, having watched Dragons v Zebra on Friday and sort of despaired at the amount of errors, and made a dig at them on Twitter, and then found myself in the first half of the Cardiff Munster game, but oh no, we're doing the same thing. But I thought actually a lot of it came from the pressure that we put Munster under, particularly in the first half. We went hard to their attacking breakdown early. I think maybe naturally we're a little bit rusty where they, brought a few guys back into their team, a few Irish internationals, and it took them a little while to get up to speed. But we certainly didn't let them develop any rhythm. Unfortunately, we couldn't quite develop any rhythm of our own either. It was defenses on top, but I was really impressed by the way we stuck in it, because at 10-0 down early in that second half, we've fallen away a number of times there away at Munster. And it could have got ugly quite quickly at that point, but actually we put together some really impressive attacking sets. The set piece was strong. Individually, I don't think anybody had a poor game. A couple of lads had particularly good games. I thought somebody who we mentioned last week on the pod, Cowan, said should definitely be starting. Ben Donnell was excellent to second row. I thought Belcher was superb again, although he seems to be slowly breaking down under the weight of carrying this team on his back. I thought Mackenzie Martin had probably his best game for Cardiff so far. The halfbacks was probably where we just fell down slightly, and I think that points to the kind of limitations of having a 10 who's still adjusting a bit and has come from the Currie Cup, and Bevan who's still adjusting, stepping up into the first team. But outside them, Grady looked really good at 13 when it was solid, and I thought Ben Thomas probably had his best game of the season as well at inside centre, really. So yeah, lots to like. It's a bit same old in terms of losing bonus points and all that, but contextually, I think if you were, let's say we'd already won 6 or 7 games a season, we had a run of Glasgow and Munster away where we were pushing for the playoffs, you take 2 losing bonus points from that at that point of the season as well. So all in all, pretty happy. I think the way it becomes a really good result and performance is if we then go on and play well against Ulster and then probably target Edinburgh at home for a win.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because like there's 2 ways of looking at it. If you said to me before the start of the season that Cardiff would go away to Munster and away to Glasgow, come away with 2 losing bonus points, I'd be like, oh, fair play. That's really good performances. Really well done. When it's been a theme and it's like 1 in 9 losses now, by more than 7 points. It's just ridiculous. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a record like it that they've been in. Like, fair play for, they always say about youngsters about a lack of consistency, but Cardiff have been so consistent this season. Just sadly the wrong side of that consistency line where it's positive. Talking on another podcast which I'm involved in on a Monday, Ellis Jenkins was on and he was talking about how he wasn't happy with the result. He wasn't happy with the performance, and I thought that was really good. That wasn't someone saying, right, we're as a team thinking, oh, we've done well, we've gone up to Munster, and we've got a point. It was, we should have won that game. We could have won that game. Munster weren't great. We weren't great, but we could have got over the line. And I think that is really positive for the future. That's a team that isn't in, there's a lot of talk about it being in transition throughout this season, but it isn't a team that's just in transition. It's a team that want to knock over that first domino and get that domino effect, as we talked about last week. But yeah, I think there are lots of positives from the game. The halfbacks one is one that I can't wait to see Sheedy and Tinas together, because it just needs someone with Tinas. If Tinas is having a bad 5-10 minutes, which fly halves have bad games, that someone else could come in and just try and steer the ship in a different way for 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's about the competition as well, isn't it? I know
Yeah.
There are some players who they want to know that they're placed in the team secure. Others, I mean, what I hear from most tens is, they like being told that they're the guy, but they also like having a guy who can overtake them at any time. If just pushing them. Whereas I feel with Tinas, he's basically you're all starting 10 unless you break yourself. Because really, Jockey hasn't really lent on our Robson. He spent most of his minutes for the Rags. He's very really come on. Ben Thomas then usually used more as an injury cover if he just does pick up a knock in the game. I said I've been loving, and I'm loving so much how Ben Thomas is playing at 12. I mean that intercept read, and I knew he wasn't a slow lad, but
I
God,
didn't
the
know he was that
gas to
quick.
do that. And he didn't even look out of breath by the end.
No.
I was like, you know what?
Can I ask about Ben? And because I'm interested on this, because sadly Joe Roberts has a season-ending knee injury and he's out for the start of next season as well. And you know, he was the obvious person to play at 13. There was talk of him and Grady playing as a centre combination. If Grady is now the 13, which it looks all likely, would you like to see Ben at 12 for Wales?
Personally, yes, because I do think he does offer he gives you that distribution and stuff that you wanted from Tompkins, but also has that bit of carry weight. I know Dan spoke last week about, maybe Beetham having that extra more natural bulk that might
Mm,
translate. I'm not sure Beetham's quite ready. Yeah, I think he needs to sort of break into so he's regularly playing for. And a quick note to Beetham, the sheer balls of steel on that kid
yeah,
to walk on the pitch, say, "Yeah, I'll do that," think over a penalty, like it's just that losing bonus point. It was like,
it's a good lad.
God, I missed you when you were injured.
No, I agree. I agree. Like I said about Beetham last week, and overall, I still think he does have the highest ceiling at 12. But this summer, if Ben's not in the squad and pushing to start at 12, I'd be massively surprised. And I
Mm,
think if you look at Wales's 12 options now, I've been a big fan of Tompkins. He was really good in the World Cup. He's done a solid job, sort of taking over from Hadley Parks and providing some consistency there. But if you look at the other 12 options in Wales coming through now, it's Ben Thomas, it's an Aaron Owen,
James, Eddie
who
James as well.
yeah, there's
Eddie
Eddie
James from
James,
Scarlets.
but I think an Aaron Owen, Harry Ackerman of the under
oh,
20s
yeah.
as well. There's those three guys who and I put Watkin in this as well actually as a 12, who are a bit more confident going in a first receiver and really creating than Tompkins is, and that when you've got a more inexperienced 10, which, it's likely the summer is going to be Costello and Lloyd again. Maybe Sheedy or an Evans could go in there if they're fit, but I don't think Gatland's going to go straight back to Anscombe or recall, like, I don't know, an Owen Williams or something like that. If he sticks with the young guys, having a second ball player in there at 12 just takes the pressure off them. Especially if it's Lloyd and to a degree Costello, freeing them up to move into that wide channel where they can be really effective is great for their game and great for Wales's game, because we know that we've still got incredible talent, 13, 11, 14, 15, who can break a line if you give them a yard of space, but it's just about giving them that yard of space. So I suppose the slightly tricky thing is that how much do you need a centre to give you that gain line if you put Grady back in at 12 or Eddie James, or if Johnny Williams is on his occasional week of fitness, then they could go in there as well. But if in an ideal world, I'd love to see Wales build around a proper playmaking 10 and 12, and Ben is probably the best playmaking 12 in Wales at the moment. So.
But I also think he can give you that sort of game though, because I think because of that injection of pace, and he has bulked up a bit, and he is learning to use his weight a lot better. That's one of it. For me, that's his biggest improvement this season.
The
So I do
the
agree, and it's something I said on the wrap. It's not a thing against Tompkins, but Tompkins is a chaos engine, and that's fine if the 10 can deal with shit being thrown everywhere and going on. So that's why I think Tompkins played so well and with bigger at 10 for Wales and with Owen Farrell's salaries. Whereas when like they had like Manu Earth in opponent and there, it, it just goes a bit wrong where I feel like he's not the sort of 12 who'll support a 10 who's struggling for a bit of confidence having a bad game. Owen Watkins is because for a start, he's been having to do that a bit at the Ospreys with Jack, getting Jack Walsh, and Dan Edwards, and he is just a very solid operator anyway.
I
I
thought
think
that was one of the things I thought about Ben Thomas, about why he had his best game on Saturday as well. Defensively, obviously you mentioned about the read for the interception, the read and the hit to win that penalty right at the end to step out of the line, and I can't recall who it was. It might have been Crowley that he's absolutely flown through his chest. Is one
Carberry,
of It was Carberry, was it?
yeah, Carberry.
It's one of the best. It's probably our best defensive moments of the season in terms of just somebody stepping out of the line and going, right, I'm coming straight through the middle. I'm not hitting you. I'm hitting through you. And I think Thomas Young gets straight over the top and they go off their feet. And that in that one defensive moment, it gives us the losing bonus point and the chance to win the game. Ultimately, we couldn't quite take it. But yeah, that he's certainly improved massively in that area, because it was the question mark pre Six Nations about whether he was a dominant defender. And if you're going to do it anywhere away, that Thomond is a good place to prove it. So.
Yeah.
So I mean, Munster is not a place for the faint of heart. And I said, absolutely, I'm not entirely sure how many actual over the ball turnovers we got, but there were many, and it's now securing us first in the URC standings for turnovers won. So, the Ospreys boys can joke and say how wonderful it is. Reece David has the most individually. We're like, yeah, but we have the most altogether because we don't need one player. We've got many. I think everyone that's it.
That's my positive stats piece sorted for a couple of weeks' time. Makes a change from the negative one I had to do on Monday, but anyway, we move on.
But a big part of that turnover, though, and that just because he hasn't been name checked yet, and he appeared on Carwin's other podcast on Monday, Ellis Jenkins was absolutely brilliant for 50 minutes on Saturday. It reminded me of that game, that random playoff game against Stade Francais a couple of years ago, where he played 7, 9, and 13 all in one game. He did that whilst just wearing 7 the whole time on Saturday. He was absolutely everywhere. He was over the ball in the middle of the pitch, linking play in the wide channels. Every turnover ball, he popped up randomly and was putting boot to ball at the right time. It was a proper throwback to sort of classic Ellis Jenkins pre-injury, and it's tinged with sadness, I guess, on a what could have been element if that hit hadn't happened in South Africa. But yeah, he was. I did my halftime tweet and just said it was Munster 3, Ellis Jenkins 0, because at times he was just holding us in that game by himself in the first half.
Oh, he was brilliant, and he's done so much and been such a brilliant player for Cardiff. And I think he was talking this week about what his role has changed now, and as more of a leader element. And we spoke about leadership earlier in the season, Harley and I, several times, and I think no one can epitomise the leadership more than Ellis now. I think he's such a strong leader, and I don't think without Turnbull and him being there, and probably Faletau behind the scenes as well a bit, I don't think Mackenzie Martin and Alex Mann get international caps this year. And they are talented players and have done it on their own backs, and they deserve it. But they also have a lot to thank for those two or three experienced lads helping them through as well.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think that's one of the things we're always trying to say is, sometimes it is worth having that older head, as long as, they are showing it. You can see the younger generation being brought through. I think that's part of the reason why, we managed to keep hold of Ray Lilo so long as we have. Because, yes, you could argue he was blocking a place for the development of Mason Grady, but also he was there. I can't think of a better 13 in the URC to learn off things like defending, working on footwork, because Ray is just, on peak Ray is just unbelievable. Do we have any more thoughts or questions you want to do with this game, or are we happy to park it?
Well, can we talk about diving gate and whether or not Reece Carey should have dived?
Is that on the blocking for their try?
Yeah. Like, I'm just saying, if that's Sexton, he's on the floor. Like, I'm just saying.
It is interesting.
I'm trying to not condone diving. However, it might have helped the scenario had he made a really big point to Piardi that he'd been blocked off from the tackle. I don't think Carey made enough of the fact he had been blocked off, because he had been. If really sounds bad, but he should have absolutely. I can't remember the name of the sevens. Is it
Hodnett?
Pardon?
John Hodnett.
Thank you.
Hodnett, yeah.
He should have absolutely just smashed into his back, because he's in the way of him making the tackle on Crowley. If Hodnett's not there, he does probably make that tackle. Not saying Munster don't score then a try in the next phase, but it would have given Cardiff a penalty and got them back out of the pitch. So personally, I think there should have been more made of it from Cardiff, and possibly try to make more of it in terms of a captaincy going up to the referee and saying, look, this is what's happened. I was at Scarlets on the weekend, and I was sat too along from Dwayne Peel. And from one of their tries, Dwayne Peel is yelling at one of the I think it's Emma Phillips, but I'm not 100% sure. He's yelling at him like, tell Ryan Elias to go to the ref. Tell him to go to the ref about this. Tell him to go to the ref about this. And I assume that was being done at Cardiff as well, but that needs to be given to Piardi, even though refs are less reluctant. Well, are more reluctant, sorry, I should say, to speak to players nowadays. It seems.
It is interesting because I think it's something that's been leveled at Cardiff for a while, mixed into that piece about leadership and stuff, is that we perhaps don't get in the referee's ear enough in games. And Piardi actually, he spoke to both teams about it, but particularly Cardiff, about players getting in his ear. He called Belcher over, I think, once in each half to sort of say, and then, we don't like to dwell on refereeing, but obviously there was, it should have been a red card for the dump tackle on Belcher. I think at least one red card. I don't think you could argue if he'd shown 2 red cards to the 2 Munster players who picked him up. I don't know how factually correct that is in law, but if you're both of those Munster players, you've not got much of a leg to stand on if you get given a red card. And
Belcher, which is the issue.
yeah, well, but
I was going to make that joke, and then I thought it was too soon.
But even our physio, Dan Jones, our physio, got told off by the referee for shouting at him after that. He said, if you shout like that again, you're off the touchline. So we are getting in ears, but yeah, maybe just trying to do it at the right times and in the right way is maybe the way to do it. But yeah, I mean, I'm still baffled at the reasoning for neither being a red card and that it wasn't a high degree of danger because he landed on his shoulder. I mean, if you're a player who's being driven towards the ground, are you meant to just be like, right, I'm gonna dead plank this here and wait for my neck to be fused into my spine just so it is a high degree of danger? Like, no, come on, guys.
This is exactly a point. This is a hill I've been trying to bloody die on for ages. Is I do not think that an offending player should be rewarded for the victim's sense of self-preservation.
Yeah.
Like,
it's totally bizarre.
That does not should, you should if you're in when World Rugby is supposedly saying how much they care about player safety, and you get TMO saying, "Oh no, I'm not going to flag this up because Austin Healey mentioned it." It's like it doesn't matter that Austin Healey mentioned it. That was a Thursday cheap shot. I don't care, even if it was on Owen Farrell. It's a dirty cheap shot, and then you just have things like that. The issue with the Leinster one,
McGrath
on Curtly Aronser. I mean, worse was hearing about the bloody RTE pundits were spending the whole game saying, "Yeah, it should be Aronser who got the yellow card." Actually, Luke McGrath was very lucky because he led with his foot.
But the thing that annoys me about the URC on that, then, though, is that you never hear of anyone getting cited in the URC. Like, very rarely does. Do you know, after like a European round, EPCR put out their disciplinary decisions, and there's at least one round of somebody getting cited. URC, I don't know if anyone's. I don't recall a Cardiff player ever being cited. Obviously, they've been disciplined for being sent off. Is it?
There is one. I can't remember who it was. Was Halaholo cited?
I think Seb's been cited. He's had citation warnings, which is basically when you've missed out on a yellow card.
But you're not telling me that how many games are in the URC? Is it 8 games? There's 16 teams, isn't it? So it's 8 games. So 8 games a weekend. And you're telling me for the majority of those weekends, nobody's done anything that the referees missed.
Yeah.
It's not a criticism of refereeing. It's just on a sort of like, on whatever the odds are of that, there's little chance that the referees are picking up every single thing. I don't know whether they're just trying to save face, and the citing officer, he watches the games with his eyes shut or something like that.
I don't know about that, but it's certainly inconsistent when compared to these EPCR. I do agree with that. It seems like the likelihood seems baffling that it wouldn't be as consistent as it is there. I think the McGrath one, I said, if he's not a scrum half, that's probably a red. And I know that's stupid, but that is what happened.
Thing to say. But if he was a Pacific Islander, that would have been a straight red. It would have questioned it.
That's the other one as well.
And you see it all the time, like players like Sam Lousy, like 50-50 goals,
However, he did put a horrendous challenge in on the weekend, so I can't really back that. Don't know if anyone's seen that, but Jesus.
I'm not saying he doesn't do ones that deserve it. I think there have been ones where it's like, well, that's
I know
see that
point.
given as yellow, and if it was like a higher ranked team as well, like they always, but annoyingly, that's just how rugby goes. More successful teams get away with it.
Yeah, I just struggled.
Hence Richard McCall.
I think you've chosen the wrong player for me this week because I was so frustrated with that
Yeah,
one.
no. In my defense, I've only seen the highlights of that game because I saw the score and went, I don't have to talk about the Scarlets game, Matt.
Were the
I'm
Scarlets
not
in the
watching that.
highlights? Was it just
Yeah, well, they're
Glasgow in the
missing
highlights?
tackles.
Yeah, I was there for that one, and it wasn't great. But let's move on before I get on a rant about Scarlets, which I shouldn't be.
Anyway, so I said, I think that's it for Cardiff. I think we'll do a run season as we haven't got a game for the next 2 weeks. We'll do a sort of rundown of all the remaining games. I think that weirdly, I mean, I'll just briefly say my thought because I was bored tinkering away on my spreadsheet and I worked out what like sort of maximum points each team can get. Yeah, I don't think Cardiff don't really have a shot of getting into the top 8 anymore. But what we do have with all the teams we're playing, we have a realistic chance of deciding who does
Yeah,
goes into the top 8.
What's that
Because I
gift thing?
think
It's like, so you're telling me there's a chance?
there is a chance. Do you know what? Do you know what's the baffling thing about the URC? Scarlet still could make top 8.
I mean, it is a close league this
it'd be
season.
very difficult because I think of all the other results going away. But
They could make it. I was thinking, oh, surely there's enough sides playing each other that means that Scarlets haven't got it. No, Scarlets could genuinely make it into the top 8. I was like,
More importantly than making the playoffs, there's a chance that we could still retain the hub cap, and that's what we really want. That's what we're after.
huge.
I do have. If give me 2 seconds, I can give you the lowdown on the hubcap moment.
If it comes down to Judgment Day at Leckwith, we're all there.
Yeah, 2 seconds because I was sad enough. I've actually because you can't actually get the current standards of the hubcap
No, I
because
noticed they've taken that off
do
the
it.
website for some reason.
Yeah, so I think it's just because it's too much effort, and you've got to be really sad like me to go work it out. So using the same criteria as the URC table, so it table points, number of wins, then points difference. So currently Ospreys are in the lead with 14 points, but they have 2 games to go. We've got 12 then. Then it's Scarlets on 11 and Dragons on 9. And again, Dragons have got 10, so they could potentially finish on 19. We could finish on 17, so it would require Dragons to beat Ospreys, and then it's basically a straight shootout then between us two on Judgment, between us and the Ospreys on the Judgment Day.
Go on, the hub cap.
Jeez.
But also, us and the Ospreys are the only 2 teams with a positive points difference on the. I mean, it's only 4 teams, but for the derby, so Ospreys have a plus 27 points difference. We have plus 23, and then both Scarlets and Dragons have negative 25 from all the derbies they've played so far.
We should be cruising to that. Those Scarlets games still annoy me, particularly the home one.
Have you looked at the
I had
wider
to stand
league?
next
Sorry.
to Hugh being smug about their bullshit tries whole game.
Have you looked at the
See, that's
wider
what
league
was-
points difference, boys? Have you
No,
looked at right? Lions in 11th are plus 77.
They average 3.7 tries a game.
this is
That
stupid
is-
competition.
Is because they're largely losing by like 5 or 6 points, but then they beat Dragons and Zebra by 50-60 or 40-50 rather. And then they beat someone else. They hammered Sharks, I think they hammered as well. So they're in and Connor. So they're in a great position in points difference, but they're down in 11th. And then you've got Benetton in 6th with a minus points difference.
I did see a stat, like I think it was before last weekend's games, that Munster and it might have been Benetton. Did Benetton win on the weekend? I didn't really see.
Yeah.
So I think before the weekend, Benetton were just out of the playoffs or whatever. But then Munster and Benetton had the same record, but Munster were like 7 points ahead of them purely on bonus points or something like that as well, which is quite bizarre.
The Premiership's just as mad this season.
Oh,
So I
the
think from like
Premiership's
second to 8th is everyone's won 8 games, but then it's all bonus points.
Yeah.
Mad. And Ospreys, for once, have actually got more bonus points than another team. They've got more bonus points than Benetton ahead of them and Edinburgh a couple of spaces below them.
Yeah, as I said, it's mad state of affairs in the URC. I said we'll probably go into a bit more of the running in properly next week, as otherwise there will be very little to talk about. Unless we get to mock Ospreys for their trick of sticking of playing a game in a bog didn't work. So shall we go on to Wales women versus England women, the Red Roses? On the face of it, very nasty score. So we lost 46-10, but that is a 20-point improvement on the deficit from last year. We prevented so England scored one fewer try and we scored one more, and it was away. I know Bristol are effectively basically in Wales nowadays. When you think about it, it's probably
I'm thinking we
it's
got
easier
another
to get
place
to
to
Bristol
conquer.
than in certain parts of Wales from Wales.
We march at dawn.
What can I say? There's some very nice microbreweries there. I want them under our flag.
No, I think there are positives. I think it's the first time we've kept them under 50 in the Six Nations for like 8 years. It's the most we've scored since before COVID. So yeah, nasty scoreline, but probably the most to like out of a Wales England game from a Wales perspective for a good couple of years. It took them a while to really get going, and then the last 20, we were probably the better team for large parts of that. I thought, to be honest, our bench was particularly good. The issue was we just could not create anything in attack. Really, we had some really decent attacking sets, and possession territory wise, we were pretty even, which hasn't been the case very often against England. But I think the issue I felt was we were just slower than them in sort of key areas. Like there was against a team like England, there's not going to be gaping holes in their defense. When the gap opens, you've got to take it. And similarly, when you're defending, they're going to punch even half a gap, and they're going to take a weak shoulder and go for it. I don't know if it's a question mark of whether we are just slow, because obviously we're missing Jazz Joyce. Karen Lake's on the top side of 30. Hannah Jones has never been, she's never been known as a rapid 13, essentially. But the other thing, I thought we were just a little bit hesitant at key moments, sort of defensive line speed. There were opportunities there, whereas if we commit and come up and really get in their faces, England were making errors. They weren't their free flowing self, but we just sort of, in the wide channels, we half came up, sat off, ended up drifting, and they got round us a bit easy. And then in attack as well, we were a little bit deep. We weren't coming onto the ball at a pace. So I thought that's where we just were a couple of percent off. And when you're a couple of percent off against England, they're just going to kill you eventually. But there was, same as talking about, how Ellis Jenkins felt after the Munster game. There was points to like, but I think the good thing about this Wales team is that they probably were ultimately disappointed that they didn't get closer, and that seemed like, listening to what Sinead Harris said on Scrum 5 and on the Scrum 5 pod this week, and a couple of the post-match interviews as well from Cunningham and from the players, that is the overwhelming emotion. So if they can just turn that couple of percent up against Ireland, there's a good performance in there and a winning performance in there as well.
Yeah, I think I came into it a little bit expecting the worst on the back of the Scotland performance, including the result. I think the result wasn't actually that bad in terms of that, but the performance, the attacking element is the key one, isn't it? And you look at the last 10 minutes, really, Wales just got at least one more try. They were dominant in the last 10 minutes. One thing I will say, Katie Powell being back and looking brilliant, fair play. She looked, for someone who hasn't played that much rugby in the last, year, nearly 2 years now, she was brilliant off the bench, I thought. And added a bit of zip to the attacking play, and coming in first receiver, regularly bringing players into play and attacking in that aspect. I thought she was brilliant. Tuipulotu is brilliant, obviously off the bench, but that's expected from 19-year-old Celia Tuipulotu. But I thought, it's still a little bit soft tries being conceded. The second Kildun try is soft. Basically, just she gets on the outside and then gets around Jenny Hesketh a little bit too easily. And yes, it is only Jenny Hesketh's second cap, but I think that's one where you go, that needs to be shored up, and that needs to be a tackle that's made, because defensively Wales are they're in a different position, I would say, than they were 2 years ago. Because 2 years ago, Wales were having to do a lot of work in their own 22 because they couldn't get any kick distance. Now Wales aren't getting as much experience defending in their own 22 because they're getting a bit more territory. So therefore, the defensive, especially in those wider channels, there's going to be more attacks down that channel because there's more space. People are attacking from further out rather than this close knit next to the ruck stuff. I think there's still a brilliant back row there. There's still, Alex Callender is having one hell of a tournament so far. She's brilliant, and Beth Lewis as well is playing well and fully justifying a new Gloucester contract that she signed this week. But there's just one or two things not quite marrying up at the moment. I think Hesketh is young, obviously, and I think they're trying to blood her young, and it's a coup that they've got her. And if you compare her story versus Meg Jones's story, Meg Jones obviously played for England on the weekend. It was brilliant, annoyingly so, after she'd come out and said something like, I made the best call I could have to go into England's pathway at the time. And I think she said something along those lines. And, that cut, because she was a former Glan Tav, people like myself. But the fact of the matter is, hopefully in the future, people won't be doing what she did, because there is a professional program there in place now in Wales, and it will be comparable in the future. It's still not quite there yet, but it is getting there, albeit one step at a time.
Yeah. What do you guys think? I mean, there was a bit made about the number of changes. I know you sort of said, "Oh, someone throwing the game with the changes," but actually, I feel like in the pack there were changes we basically all called for on this podcast, which is Poojo and coming him listens to us. That's why everyone listening should tell all their friends and family to listen as well. One thing that did seem to go down is with Natalia John being on the bench. So, you think that had anything to do with why the lineouts were down, or was it? Or is it
Yeah,
Hooker? Is it just the fact that it's Wales, therefore we must have a crap lineout at least one game every 3 or 4?
I thought the call-in was a little bit odd in that we did persist on throwing it to the back when it wasn't particularly working. But yeah, I didn't mind the changes on the basis that the impact the bench brought was really good in that last quarter, and I think it proves that Wales do have better depth now. That is the one thing about this squad, is that if you can, because I thought scrum was tough, but I thought Donna Rose done all right. And then if you can release it to a Pelotu off the bench, that's great. I thought Sian Jones done pretty well at 9, and then you can release Akira Bevan off the bench, then that's great for the final quarter as well. And you still see in the women's game, I think, that the final quarter is really crucial, perhaps more so than the men's game to a degree. I think that it's just space opens up a little bit more, and if you can get fresh legs on in the right areas, you can take advantage of that. If you can raise the tempo at the right time, which Bevan did, she really brought a zip to that attack, and with Kaylee Powell as well, who I'm not really aware of what's happened. I know she was with the Sevens for a bit. I assume she's been injured as well, but
yeah, I think ACL as well.
Oh, she was an ACL as well. Yeah, that's probably just the easiest thing to guess at the women's game, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think to use your whole squad, I don't think is a bad call from Cunningham, and really develop that depth in a game like this. But yeah, I haven't watched it back to properly to look at the lineouts. In my mind, they sort of went all right, and then I looked at the stats and I was surprised actually by how. But then England's was quite poor as well, to be honest. So maybe Ashton Gate, I don't know. We'll just blame that, and when we conquer it, we'll burn it down.
Cardiff the Conquerors.
Yeah, following on from Wine Glendour over there.
You want to talk about a debut very special to the pod?
Yes, Molly Reardon. Look, I'm just really excited about it. It's a brilliant story. Someone who a year ago was starting with scrum half for Wales under-20s, starting ahead of Sian Jones as well. She's a year older than Sian. That's probably one of the reasons why. But she then felt she wasn't getting enough out of herself, basically, and said that she wanted to move to hooker. Done a bit of experience at league as well. Maybe that had a bit of, the hooker position is the sort of scrum half position in league. Maybe that had a bit of an influence on it there as well. But I was speaking to her former coach, current coach actually, I should say, Pontyclean and Cardiff Met, Lisa Newton, former Wales international as well. She said, yeah, it was just a discussion they'd had pre-season about that. Molly had said, look, she wanted to try something different, wanted to try hooker, and they put her in there. And Lincoln Eck, fair play to someone for making that change and then having that much of an influence on an international game for a start within a year of making that change, but also Celtic Challenge. She was brilliant. She's been really good this season. She's been playing for Cardiff Met as well. And yeah, it's just really exciting because there was a few years ago she was playing for Wales under 18s with another Pontyclun alumni, Maya Dixon in the halfbacks, and they played really well. So to see that that's the progression that they've gone from, well, she's gone from, I should say, rather playing scrum half, being consistent, and taking that leap of faith and saying, right, yeah, I'm doing well at this point, but where can I improve? And going ahead and saying, right, I'm going to become a hooker and a world class hooker, or hopefully in the future, maybe I've pushed her on a bit there to call her world class, but she is a brilliant hooker and can develop in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, so I thought it was great when she came on, and basically I think Kira Bevan got stuck in the bottom of the ruck, and Reardon took over for a few phases, was zipping some fantastic balls. Like the line out, a darts were pretty decent. Which when you say, "Oh, so and so's only converted to a hooker this year," and you're like, and there's like, no problem.
Yeah, it's mad. It's bonkers, but really excited about it. I really am. Yeah, it's slightly biased to Pontyclun, who I've gone down to watch a few times, and yeah, it's that the quality of players they bring out every single season. It seems to be is brilliant, and very excited for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the thing I said, another thing we asked for on this pod was bringing Kate Williams in to start at blindside and bringing Alicia Butchers off the bench. I thought that worked really well in this game. I thought Georgia Evans as well is always awesome. I like if you've got Georgia Evans and you're fit and available, why are you not playing her? Because she is always awesome.
Do you know random fact about Georgia Evans? Do you know who her cousin is?
I do. We talked about him earlier, I think, didn't we?
Do we?
Is it not Jamie Hill?
Oh, that's news to me if it is as well. But Kerry Sweeney.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm sure she's Jamie Hill's cousin as well, to be honest.
I
Well, there
mean,
we
let's
go.
be fair, we're Welsh. We're probably all cousins somewhere down the line.
Seems to be two very different opinions on the pod. We've got let's fight, let's take over the world, and we're all incestuous. So I'll be the mediator at the moment between.
Uh, I think I've lost my train of thought there with it.
I think
It's
just on Georgia Evans, though, I think I sometimes think about what a women's Lions team would look like, and is it pointless because it would just be England? But I think she's one player who you could legit put in there as a potential starter as well. There's a couple. The England locks went all right on the weekend, but I don't think she'd certainly be there. She'd certainly be on the plane to wherever they go.
Rachel
And
Malcolm, I'd say, in
yeah,
for a shout. I think
there's
as a potential captain as well, because I think she is one of the best captains out there in rugby.
She is just flat
yeah.
out the way she spoke after Wales last year. I don't think I've ever heard a post-match interview like that. Rachel Malcolm. Sorry, Dan, but go on, carry on.
No, it's a fair point. And I do think it's the one position where England probably don't dominate that Lions squad potentially. So,
Yeah.
because there's an Irish second row as well whose
Sam
name,
Monaghan, Sonny
yeah,
Bill, Sonny Bill
escapes
Monaghan.
me. And if you build, I think you probably have most of the England front row. Because I mean, Bottoman was a joke for England on Saturday. She was just everywhere, and like she's not just like sort of pushing people out of the way. She's like destroying their career on the way past. just to rub their face in it. She was a joke. So England dominate a lot of that, but certainly Georgia Evans and Tuipulotu were Welsh contenders to start in a Lions pattern. Probably unfortunately for Calendar is that she plays in a position where Marley Packer is as well. So
Yeah,
It'd be
Marley
a mixed
Packer
squad.
can
Like
shift Packer to 8. Just a calendar.
I said, I could see if they did do a line squad, I could see Calendar going. whether she'd necessarily do the
Oh,
tech
certainly going, yeah.
games,
Yeah.
she'd definitely be there. Like, she might end up playing like a top 14 select 15. So, what? Oh, whatever. What's the French women's league?
Oh,
Not
yeah.
remember the bloody tournament now. I don't know why I said top
The
14.
Prem, Alliance Prem.
No, it was in the French one.
Oh, sorry, I don't know actually. Sorry.
Yeah, the
Le
French
Allianz Prem.
Yeah, allez. Oh, God. Oh, we're so close to getting cancelled. Um, moving away from sort of senior rugby now. So under 18s is so we've had the under 18 Six Nations Challenge going on.
Mhm.
Dan, you've been following this a little bit more closely than the others. I did see that we beat Portugal under 18s this morning.
Yep.
Unfortunately, because of my work, I can't just sit and watch rugby whilst working anymore.
Get a better job. um yeah, I think it was 35-18 or something in the end. It was quite close at
It's
half time.
35-10.
Or
I thought
35-10
it was
was it?
35-10.
It possibly, it was
Like
quite close to
two
half
shot
time,
away.
and then we ran away with it in the second half, pretty much. So, but that was quite a changed team. It was the England game, lost by a point on Saturday. It was a great game. It's on the YouTubes if you want to catch up with it. But I mean, 2 words: Tom Bowen. We've signed him back from Bristol and Clifton next season. He was unbelievable playing off the wing on Saturday. He's not a particularly short bloke. He's relatively average height, I would say. But the way he runs, his center of gravity is so low. Probably only 2 or 3 players I can think of who've been able to, Habana and your really top guy, Shane Williams, who can change direction whilst not dropping any speed. It's incredible the way he moves through players. He doesn't actually look like he's moving that quickly. They just sort of disappear. It's a very bizarre running style, I have to say, but it's so effective. He's because it's so low. It's so center of gravity. It's so low that it's impossible to tackle. If you get a hand on the thigh, he's just going to go through it. The only way you can proper tackle him is if you happen to line him up, essentially. Yeah, he's a great pickup. He played fullback today. It wasn't a game that set up too much for him to have much of an impact. Although Steph Emmanuel scored today off the bench, our other returner for next season, who looks particularly good. I think probably 12 long term. But yeah, those 2 lads in particular. And then a word for one of our other players is Tom Howe, who started a hooker against England. He is still under 16, but he's played for Cardiff under 18s and for Wales under 18s now, starting ahead of Ruben Cummings, who was with us and is now at Gloucester. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Griff has said that because we did have Gavin Parry on the books, who played for Scotland in 20 in the end. But I think they've moved on from him and contracted Tom Howe instead. And judging by his progression so far, it seems to be a pretty good decision.
Yeah, excellent stuff. I know Gruff was very excited when he came on the pod. We were talking about Tom and Stefan joining, and I will remember Cam Tyler Grocroft, who's been filling up for the Rags at Loosehead. Well, Cam's quit himself quite well for a young lad, and Gruff was saying it's probably not what they wanted for him, but
yeah,
it's
I
working.
was aware of him playing really well for Glamorgan Wanderers before Christmas, and he seems to have made the step up pretty seamlessly. I haven't watched much of the Rags in the second half of the season, but he's I think who did they beat on the weekend? Aberavon, wasn't it? And he's made a really nice carry before one of the tries, so he's certainly not looking out of place at that level.
So, Colin, you ready for sort of a Premiership round with them?
Yeah, well, we've started on it there, isn't it? Cardiff won at Aberavon. Pontypridd, though, lost at Quins, and I'll come back to the ramifications of that. But Merthyr did get the win at home to RGC, even though they only won by 4 points. So an impressive performance from RGC, to be fair, considering they've been probably second best at most games this season. Certainly found travel difficult, as it normally is. But yeah, for the season as a whole, as we mentioned earlier, Newport are now top of the table, 4 points clear of Llandovery, but Llandovery do have a game in hand. Cardiff are fourth, still 68 points. Pontypridd now have played a game more and are on 58. I think that's them done in their top four ambitions. If I'm honest, the teams that could catch Cardiff are Pontypool and Merthyr, who are, yes, 2 and 3 points further back than Pontypridd respectively, but do have 2 games in hand on Cardiff, so could easily close that gap to, well, in Pontypool's case, could close that gap to 2 points if they win both games in hand with bonus points. And that's so Merthyr, I do think, are still in the fight, but it is going to be Cardiff's place to lose going forward. If Cardiff win all their games, they will be short of being in the top four.
One of them's against Merthyr. I think Cardiff play Merthyr a week Saturday. So if we win that, then we'll be pretty much feet up.
When you say we, obviously you mean whoever wins between the two clubs for the Cardiff region. No, but yeah, for this weekend, yeah. For this weekend, Cardiff played Carmarthen at home. Good performance from Carmarthen last week, but you'd like to think at home that Cardiff can get the win there. And then the other games to just look out for: Neath, Newport, always a big one, always an exciting one. Ebervale, Aberavon, obviously being a bit up and down this season, but they'll be looking to fight. No Merthyr or Pontypridd this weekend in Welsh Premiership action. But yeah, as you mentioned, there is that juicy thought of a Merthyr Cardiff tie on the 13th of April in Merthyr. That is.
I think it's in Cardiff. Is it?
According to the BBC Sport website, it's in
Oh,
Merthyr.
really?
But I will double check.
To be fair, they are not infallible.
No comment. In fairness, the fixtures don't actually come through from the. I'm going into too much detail about where they come from, but yes, I will double check that now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's at home on the Rags website.
It's at home. It's at home according to Cardiff Rugby's website, according to Merthyr's website as well. It's in Cardiff. So I will be sending an email tonight.
And don't forget, as always, for that game, if you are a Cardiff Rugby season ticket holder, you can attend the game for free.
I think we switched their home and away games. I think that's probably why it's wrong on the BBC, because I think it was meant to be home on one of the European days and they don't let us double header them. So we switched with them. But yeah, as Harley said, I know a lot of people whinging about how long there was between the two games. I think people forget that you can get in on your season ticket to Rags games, and it's always Saturday 2:30. You can literally build the thing around it.
And age grade games. So this leads me to a question that was posted last week for the pod. Unfortunately, we didn't get time. So they were basically saying there's a lot of positivity that gets generated with all the high attentions on match days, but how do we do it with these big gaps in the fixture list? So obviously, URC as a league is trying not to play on international weekends, so that takes up big chunks. And then if you're not in knockout stages, at least. So what do you guys think? Just very quickly, because I'm aware of the time. What do you think we can do to try and keep this buzz and keep the action? For me, I think it is just trying to push the age grade, push things. Whether or not maybe next year Celtic Challenge and we do have a team based account, maybe include that as well and actually get some drive towards that. But any thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to see the club make more of the Rags. I know, there's political bits and pieces there around the athletic club running it and how much the sort of Cardiff Rugby get involved in that. But certainly next season now, the Rags will probably be our only team in the EDC. I would like to see us properly pushing, like when the games are, who's playing, come down and see the next generation of players, come down and see some of the best semi-pros in the league. And really make the most of that. And I just think there's bits and pieces more that they can do, particularly around kids and stuff, open training sessions in half terms, because Feb half terms always and in the middle of the Six Nations, and there's usually an October half term around the autumn internationals as well. So opening that, because I think the Dragons do that quite well. They get people into Ystrad a lot, and kids particularly meeting the players, and that's what they want to do. They want pictures with the Fave players, and they want them to sign their jerseys and all that sort of stuff. So I would like to see us push that element a bit more. When pushing the obviously they train a lot against other clubs as well this season. Quins came down the other day, and we do bits and pieces with the other ones. So why not open that up as well to get people into watching that? But a lot of it's out of the club's hands, in that the calendar's just a mess, and there's too many fallow weeks in the Six Nations. If you had very clear, this is international, then we're back to like a European block, and then we're back to a URC block, it would be a lot easier. But yeah, that's well above the pay grade of people at the Arms Park.
Anything you want to add to that one, Carmen?
To be honest, no. I think as Dan says, on paper it should become simpler next season with the EDC situation. Although it's not the ideal situation, I think it does make it a little bit more straightforward in that that partnership can be more exclusive and more obvious and publicized to a better extent. So I think that can work in a better capacity next season.
As the only other things I would have thought about it, and it just came to the head, is like, obviously you had friendlies, so like, I mean, Munster have been playing Springboks. I think they've got a New Zealand 15 next year during the autumn internationals. Maybe just a big friendly game, even if it is with a Premiership side, something. Basically just try and get someone through the door. The other one I was thinking is maybe make more of, obviously, some of the fan zone stuff that we've had for the Six Nations. I know that's sort of run WRU, and I think we get a bit of a cut out of that. I'd have to double check that, sure. But actually, maybe if when it is like a big game away, obviously everyone bemoans the fact that traveling to these places is a bit hard, but why not make it as almost an away day thing? So I remember I think it was for Bilbao, the final. We ended up going to Cap and watching the game there, and it was absolutely great. Yeah, atmosphere and stuff. So it just thought, just turn the big screen around, in a little courtyard outside the clubhouse, just open it up. Because you're not going to get any, but I think if you're there and you're going to watch with all the people you normally go to watch, and let's have a few pints. So I know that's just the mad ramblings of who's fried his brain at work. Anyway, unless either of you gentlemen want to have any last comments, queries, or questions before we sign off.
Don't think I have.
All good.
In that case, we will see you next week. Thank you as always for listening. Thank you both to Colin and Dan for putting up with me and for giving us, some very valid insights. We will catch you next week. Ta-ra.
Bilbao.